I gotta find a job.
Hey everybody, it's Hannah Saulic, the head of video at CinemaBlend, here with Sean O'Connell, our managing editor, and we had to hop on first thing this morning because yesterday news broke that Henry Cavill's Superman is officially not returning in whatever James Gunn's new DCU plan is, which is, I mean, for me, mixed feelings. Sean, what was your initial reaction?
I want to say shock, but it wasn't shock necessarily, because with the DC universe, and especially with this changing of the guard and James Gunn coming in, I legitimately feel like anything is and was possible. But there's so many factors we're going to get into over the course of this video, Hannah, as to why this was so surprising, because it just was mishandled. So much of it was mishandled. And we'll get into all the different reasons why, I think, as we go through and discuss what happened and what's going to happen moving forward.
We have a plan, General.
A singularity can be created.
So if we open up this doorway, then theoretically they should be pulled back in.
So you want us to bomb them with that?
Not something I asked for!
Just to kind of set the scene, Sean and I were talking earlier about how there's like a lot of blame that's being placed on James Gunn and this new plan with Peter Safran. But really, when you break it down, all of this sort of like confusion and, like you were saying, mistreatment is not being done by them. So we are going to get into that. All right.
Okay.
I'm going to just read Henry's statement real quick in case people forgot what it says. But he said, "I have just had a meeting with James Gunn and Peter Safran, and it's sad news, everyone. I will, after all, not be returning as Superman after being told by the studio to announce my return back in October prior to their hire. This news isn't the easiest, but that's life. The changing of the guard is something that happens. I respect that. James and Peter have a universe to build. I wish them and all involved in the new universe the best of luck and the happiest of fortunes. For those who have been by my side through the years, we can mourn for a bit, but then we must remember Superman is still around. Everything he stands for exists, and the examples he sets for us are still there. My turn to wear the cape has passed." Oh, sad. That's just like the past just got me. But what Superman stands for never will. It's been a fun ride with you all, onwards and upwards.
Just a class act. Like,
So
that is
classy.
the classiest statement that anyone could put
He's
forward.
a classy dude.
Real classy.
What I want to emphasize so much off the top of the bat is that, you know, there's all this conversation about actors and characters and all this jazz, but like, this is a human being, you know, like we can overlook very quickly that Henry Cavill is a dude who loves Superman. Like, he legitimately loves the character, and has been on this emotional roller coaster over the past few months, which I think could have easily been avoided if people were just a little more transparent with either him or with the decisions that were being made. And in that instance, Hannah, I don't personally blame Gunn, because I think a lot of these decisions were made before he and Peter Safran came on board. And a lot of it dates back to the old regime. And a lot of this falls on The Rock, who, you know, used Henry as a cornerstone of the campaign for Black Adam. And maybe, you know, I'm not sure who fed the misperceptions to Henry that he was going to be coming back officially, right? And there were a lot of people talking, like, when that happened, of like, are you actually signed? Like, what's the deal? Do you have a contract? I think we did. And I foolishly believed that if they were allowing this man to go forward and make Instagram videos and say, I'm back, that they legitimately had like plans in place for him to come back. And my heart just breaks for him, as I know, being a fan of the character and how much he is in tune with the fan base and how much he loves being Superman and
he's
representing
so good
Superman.
at it. Like, even people who aren't Snyder movie fans love Henry Cavill as Superman, and it must be frustrating as a person to just know, like, hey, people really love me in this role. I really want to play this role. Yeah. And then for it to just be like, you're going to, after like years of like, will he, won't he? It finally seemed like he will, here's the thing. And then it was like, oh, just kidding. Right. And to me, it's almost like somebody at Warner's, I assume, and again, I don't know, maybe they didn't. I mean, I don't know, Warner's is a mess, but like somebody had to have known, like, hey, he just put this video out, like, I think it was like a week or 2 weeks later, James Gunn and Peter Safran were announced as like the new heads of DC Studios. Somebody had to have known that that shift was happening and should have, just out of sheer respect for Henry Cavill, been like, hey, I don't think you should do this yet because we need to check with these new people. Like, I just think there's something got lost there. And yeah, I mean, we don't know who officially gave him that go ahead, but it's just, it again points to me how mismanaged DC has been at Warner Brothers for so long. And something that excites me about like the sort of like bittersweet part of this is that with James Gunn making this decision and being really transparent about plans, it makes me kind of feel like, okay, I know we're all exhausted from just constantly being like, this is happening, no, this is happening, and then nothing happens. And it's like, I finally feel like that period is coming to an end, hopefully. And it really sucks that it's not with Henry. I wish it were, but also, you know, from a logical business perspective and thinking about story and how you build a new universe, like it's, we've talked about this before. It's just, it's so much baggage. You can't.
No matter how much we wanted to, no matter how much we loved you.
What made this more difficult is that, you know, fans can get wrapped up in speculation and you can project what you think is going to happen or what you really want to happen. But when the actual actor comes out and says,
I am back as Superman, and the image you see on this post and what you saw in Black Adam are just a very small taste of things to come. Thank you for your support and thank you for your patience. I promise it will be rewarded.
That's ridiculous. I mean, that goes to the mismanagement that we've been talking about, and how this man got mistreated. And that, again, breaks my heart. I got to leave it at just the fact that it breaks my heart, because it will forever be a what if.
I can promise you that.
Oh, in like 10 years, too, people are going to be doing all kinds of retrospective looks back at like how DC totally messed up Henry Cavill. Like, but they've been like somebody posted, I think it was on our YouTube. I posted a graphic just like when the news broke last night. And someone was like, DC's been doing this since like Keaton's Batman with Tim Burton. And like, they just have never had respect for the actors or filmmakers that are handling DC property. And like, hopefully that changes.
It also blows my mind that in 40 years, are we talking? We've had at most, arguably, 3 great Superman movies. Like, how can that be the case? There's 4 Thor movies. Exactly. We can't get Superman right. Right? I don't understand this at all. Yeah. How is he that hard of a character to figure out? Like, I'm including the first Superman and Superman 2. And then I'm including Man of Steel. And everything else from that point on either isn't a traditional Superman movie or was, you know, the botched Superman Returns or the weaker Christopher Reeve Superman movies. Like, what is going on with this character?
Not a goddamn thing.
Which then leads me to the little bit of optimism, which is, okay, so James Gunn is at least stating that Superman is important to him in this new universe going forward. And I think you and I are both of the same mindset that this is a new universe, right?
I don't think they're interested in sharing this world.
And again, I love how transparent James is being on social media. Love it. This is terrific.
Thank you.
What was it? Somebody was like, oh, James Gunn doesn't like Henry Cavill. And then James Gunn responded with that comment about like, sorry you got kicked out of your mom's basement. So glad you're plugged in.
Which was terrific. Because again, hold on, let's touch on that just for a quick second, because that thing blew out of proportion, right? Like, that guy he's making videos based on James Gunn's response. Gunn's response initially was just like, hey man, that's a false rumor. But then the guy doubled down. Is like, I don't know. I've heard from plenty of people who tell me that you're wrong. And that's when Gunn came back and he was like, all right, man. Like, stop. Just stop.
The worst types of people
in
just in any situation are the people that you're like, oh, I think this. And they're like, no, I don't think you do. And you're like, oh, I'm so sorry.
Or worse, I don't know. Other people have told me that you really think this. Oh, they have? Oh, great.
Wow. Anyway, so after Cavill posted on Instagram, James posted on Twitter, and he said, Peter and I have a DC slate ready to go, which we couldn't be more over the moon about. We'll be able to share some exciting information about our first projects at the beginning of the new year. Among those on the slate is Superman. In the initial stages, our story will be focusing on an earlier part of Superman's life, so the character will not be played by Henry Cavill. But we just had a great meeting with Henry, and we're big fans, and we talked about a number of exciting possibilities to work together in the future. Okay, immediate question. Do you think that the whole possibilities to work together in the future thing is real, or do you think that that's just like, you know, good?
That feels unrealistic to me. Like, I don't see how you would, although we have had conversations about Momoa going over and playing someone other than Aquaman, like if he were to play Lobo. But like, character confusion is an honest thing, you know? Like, I wouldn't want to see Henry Cavill playing someone else in the DC universe if he was not able to play.
But if they're
Superman.
gonna do younger Superman, which, like, what do you think they mean by younger? If it's because it's not an origin story,
right? So what I kind of envision, and I could be way off, is what Matt Reeves did with Robert Pattinson, which is you start a Batman movie in like year 2, right? Like, I mean, he's already new. Batman. Yeah. He's figuring out what to do. And that you could a little bit do that with Superman in that sense, in that you don't have to do the whole Kansas bit. He said he's going to be Clark Kent already, you know, at the Daily Planet. And so why not? You know, I mean, as long as you still have an interesting story and potentially
Lois Lane.
No, we're going to get a whole new Lois Lane.
Continue.
But, and you know what cleans all this up, Hannah, is a good movie. Like, if it's good, then we all say, all right, we still feel bad for Henry, and I'm sorry he never got another shot at it. But because, okay, so I saw Drew McWeeny, who's a film critic, a classic film critic, great insight all the time. He made this comparison. He says Henry Cavill is essentially Pierce Brosnan as James Bond. He finally got his shot. He had a really great movie to start off with, and then they never figured out how to use him properly again, right? So at the time, if everybody was like, well, James Bond is done, you know, Pierce Brosnan couldn't do it, and then they came out with Casino Royale, they introduced Daniel Craig, and all of us were like, oh, holy shit, that's how you do James Bond. Like, could that happen?
I truly
think
we're gonna look back in like 5 years and be like, wow, LOL, remember how much of a shit show this used to be? Look at it now. Like,
right. Yeah.
So trying to think of everything half full. And another interesting piece of this is they met with Ben Affleck.
Hi there.
Who's hopefully gonna direct something, which it should be exciting for Snyder fans, you know, like what the Batman project that we never got to see from him, maybe we'll get to see something even better. Like, he's a great director, he really cares about DC, and I think like the fact that Ben Affleck even met with them shows Ben Affleck's own faith in what James Gunn and Peter Safran are gonna do, because he's been jerked around so many times by that studio too. Like, the fact that he would even go into talks was kind of surprising to me, but
I would hand Ben Affleck a blank check and just said, go make whatever movie you want to make. And what if Affleck still gets to make that Batman versus Deathstroke movie, but it's not him in the bat suit, right? Because we had always talked about the fact of how they kind of painted themselves into the corner with the older Batman. And maybe it was going to get to the point where you were going to get a Batman Beyond type movie where he mentors,
wasn't it confirmed that
younger,
like his Batman script had a younger Batgirl in it that he was kind of like with?
Oh, I'm not sure.
I feel like that was a thing. I'm sure I'll get you.
Because I would still love to see him direct it.
Yeah.
Well, that's fun. That's what we do in these videos. I would love to see him come back and direct. And I don't know if he has a project on the horizon coming up. Like, I'm not sure if he's directed anything since Live by Night. Has he?
Isn't he directing that new one about Air Jordans?
Yes. So between Patty Jenkins learning that she's essentially not able to move forward her vision of Wonder Woman, Henry Cavill finding out that he's not coming back as Superman, Ben Affleck being approached to potentially direct future DC projects, and that rumor that Gunn then shot down of that Matt Reeves's universe may somehow play into what they're planning to do overall, it almost makes me feel that each of these core characters, especially the Trinity, what I'm thinking is that, okay, so let's say we have a Batman who exists in the Matt Reeves universe who is in his year 2, year 3 kind of phase, right? Now Gunn says he's announcing he's writing a Superman project where we get a younger Superman, but it's not the origin story. So maybe he's in year 2, year 3 of his career phase type thing. And then Patty's story, which she said wanted to sort of double down on the Wonder Woman 1984 aspects of it all, isn't moving forward because it doesn't jive with what Gunn and Peter Safran are trying to do. What if they're envisioning a Wonder Woman project where she is also in her 2 to 3 year phase? Like, you line the timelines up, right? You figure out a way that, like, we're going to create this universe where they're not all connected, but they exist in a time frame where they each have the potential to connect or crisscross, and you don't force the marriage of all of them coming together. You just start to establish a universe where they're all kind of on a level playing field in terms of like timelines, essentially.
Alternate timelines.
I also think we had maybe speculated or theorized that potentially because James Gunn has this tendency to sort of pick, at least with Marvel, sort of these like off the beaten path characters, and I guess the Suicide Squad too, that maybe his DC universe wasn't immediately going to focus on the Trinity. But this also signals to me like, no, they're following Zaslav's thing of like, they want the three of them to be like tentpole, like the center of everything, which makes me wonder if we're going to get, like, if that means Battinson, or if that means it two Batmen, or what that means. And I don't think that that's going to be like an immediate thing. I wonder if they'll kind of start with Superman, do a few side characters, then work up to, because like there could be a world too, this is a theory, where like Matt Reeves does a trilogy of Batman movies in its own separate universe that's overdone, and then it's like then Batman comes into whatever James Gunn is doing.
Could be, but you know what? I'm confident that James Gunn has the answer to that right now.
I'm just
I think that he's at least
Sean.
yeah. But when's the last time that we were able to say that I feel pretty confident that somebody over at DC knows the answer to that?
Never.
Because
not since we've started doing videos.
Right, exactly. Been a long time.
I feel like we used to end every video with like, but who knows?
But this is the glass half full. Yeah. Like, yes, there's some tough decisions that have to be made. And we're starting to see the ramifications of these. But it feels like these are the steps moving forward towards a plan. And it's just a matter of, are we on board with the plan or not?
Yeah.
And currently, I'm on board with it. I think I'm on board with it. I hate it for Henry. I love Henry. I think Henry.
My heart is broken for Henry.
I hate it. And I cannot admire anymore his statement.
Oh yeah.
I'm impressed.
And I mean, maybe this is opening up better things for him. You know, you mentioned like, does this mean Bond is on the table for him potentially? Even though they wanted a younger Bond, we don't know. It sucks too with the Witcher stuff. I know that was potentially about, you know, things to do with source material and the actual scripts, but yeah, but to your point, I think he said it best in saying that, like, you know, the whole message of like, let's mourn for now, but then we got to move on and like
come back to the living.
So let's just get into this real quick. Do you think he's going to go over to Marvel? Like, do you think he's going to pull a James Gunn? Where like, remember like when Disney let James Gunn go and then DC scooped him up? Like, do you think Marvel is about to be like? I
100% think he's going to Marvel.
This is gonna hurt.
He would be, I mean, he'd be, I will literally, like we were discussing before this video, like I'm in on whatever Henry Cavill's choosing to do, right? Like I'm in. I think he'd be strange for Reed Richards, but I'd go with it.
Who would you see him as? Like if Marvel were to say like, come here.
It's so lazy to say like Captain Britain, you know? And I don't even really know where they fit Captain Britain in, but like Captain Britain is like Marvel's Superman to a certain extent.
They won't necessarily make the same mistakes we did.
People were commenting that when he showed up at the Avatar world premiere, looking super dapper in a blue suit.
He always looks dapper.
They were like, no, I know, I understand that. But they were like, this is a very strategic play on his part. Like he's showing up here to prove something and that's what led me down the Bond trail.
Oh.
But maybe he's showing up at a Disney premiere because he's about to join Marvel.
Maybe he's advertising.
I don't know.
He's like, hey, I'm available.
I'm here to help.
The question it raises is, what are we doing about The Flash and Aquaman 2 and Shazam 2?
No one, okay,
like,
so, like how are we supposed to care about going to go see those movies when it's basically been, like, do you think that Zaslav was just like, hey, we know these are gonna be a wash. Like it is what it is. We're gonna take the loss, and it's not worth like you guys not announcing your plan and like gaining momentum. Because like at this point, like a lot of people are like, why even go see these movies?
Nobody cares anymore, Keelix.
The world is about to come to an end.
I'm marginally interested still in the Flash because I've always wanted Flash to have his own movie, you know, and I'm very excited about seeing Michael Keaton back as Batman. True. I don't know enough about what the Aquaman story is, you know. I love James Wan, and I kind of want to see what they're doing in that universe, but you're right, I'm not
because like I doubt that
Aquaman
that. 2 was written or like conceived to be an end point on something, and if that's ultimately what's happening, it's like, well, I don't know, like it would be like going to go see Black Adam. Like when we saw Black Adam, and I know that a lot of people did not agree with us, or at least on our video, we were like, what is like a lot of the implications of this story in this world? It's just like, where did this stuff come from? What are the, like, it just didn't resonate, and it was just hard to like invest in because the movie itself wasn't good. You know, like if the movie itself just as a story was good, it's like you don't really care about a lot of that stuff. So, I mean, yeah, I guess to a point you made earlier, if the movies are good, that's all that matters. But
then you forgive a lot of the sins. And that's exactly why I think that they pivoted the talking points on the publicity tour to, hey, we're building towards something. Hey, we're going to get Superman involved here because
the hierarchy of power is changing.
He wasn't wrong. It definitely changed. Just not the way he anticipated in the least bit whatsoever. Man, I listen, Rock is extremely savvy and generally knows how to handle publicity. But this one fell back on him. You know, he's got egg on his face for the way that this played out.
Well, again, you'd think somebody at Warner's would be like, hey, don't do that. But maybe it's just because there wasn't really anyone in place to sort of take on that role, that everybody was just kind of like, well, I guess he's gonna say that. Like, what could it hurt? Right. Kind of a thing.
And also, like behind the scenes, like, are you gonna bet against The Rock? Like, I guess in that instance, I guess you could say like, it might work. His fans could show up, and then they didn't necessarily, and then they were like, damn, that really backfired. So I don't know, where are we going moving forward?
I don't know. I kind of view this as like, I know that it's really sad, and I think a lot of people are gonna maybe initially be really resistant to whatever James Gunn's news, like when that casting news breaks, that poor actor. But I do think that this is almost like ripping a Band-Aid off, you know? And it's like, as just a DC fan, it's like, I don't know, it doesn't serve me to be sad about it, because it's like nothing we're gonna do is gonna get Henry back right now. And you know, hopefully in the future we'll look back and be like, you know what, that sucked in the moment, but that was a really great decision for the overall story and the arc and where DC is going, and actually making it something that people want to see versus feel like they have to see, or like they're just gonna get disappointed when they go see it. And so I don't know. I mean, like I'm optimistic, but I'm also sad.
Well, there's this Pavlovian response also too, that whenever someone says like, we're going to announce our full slate in the early part of next year, I get excited. And I don't know if it's like Lucy holding the football and I'm just, you know, lining up to go kick it again. But like, you're right. I want to be optimistic that this new leadership team, like we've been craving leadership at the top of DC. Yep. We now have it, right? We have to let them implement their plan.
And make decisions. And you don't bring James Gunn in to execute other people's visions. You bring him in to say like, hey, what do we do? Start from scratch. And I have yet to see a James Gunn movie that I didn't vibe with. So personally, like, I'm not really that worried. He's a great screenwriter. He's not directing it. They haven't announced who would be directing it. He's just said that he's writing it at this point. And so, I mean, I trust him. Which I know is...
And in a way, I almost don't want him to direct it. Mm-hmm. In a way, I'd like to see some other voices come through. Like, yes, let him write the script. Let him kind of fit it into whatever the bigger picture that they have. But let's maybe turn the reins over. And again, I don't care. If he ends up directing it, that'd be fantastic as well, too. But I would love to see some other fresh voices come in and bring a different style to Superman. And then allow James to also, in addition to working on this script, maybe continue to focus on the big picture type of things and the other decisions that have to be made.
You're the leader. You're supposed to be decisive.
We said this, I think I said this before the video. that James Gunn has been telling us since day one when he took over this job that he was writing a Superman movie. And I don't know, I'm sure there's some people out there who like immediately had that theory once he first tweeted that thing at the typewriter, but I love
that's so true.
How, to an earlier point you made, just goes to show how transparent he is. I think it's going to be really fun over the years to kind of like, I mean, again, I love a fan theory and I go down rabbit holes, not because I like, and I'm not one of those people that like gets mad when they're wrong. I just genuinely think it's fun. And I think it's going to be really fun to sort of like, the more he starts to kind of show us, there's going to be so many dots to connect. And I bet he's going to be very strategic about things, and we're gonna look back and be like, oh my god, he already told us that too. So I'm excited.
Well, then let's look at the other banner that he's been sharing constantly. You might want to grab the graphic novel Kingdom Come, because he's been sharing photos from that often.
Do you think?
And everyone's like, let's settle down, maybe he's just showing a photo, but maybe he's not just showing a photo.
I don't think James Gunn is ever just doing something. I think he's very he's a very smart person. I think he's very intentional about what he's
he enjoys playing the game.
Oh, and like, he's so good at it.
He knows what he's doing.
The more we talk about it, the more excited I am, just because I'm hopeful for like, you know, 5 years from now, we won't be in this place of like, well, this movie is coming out. What do we think? It's like, we're actually gonna hopefully be excited about these things. And I hope that James Gunn can just sort of rebuild some trust within DC fan communities, and I think that's going to be a long road, but I don't think it's impossible. I think it's just going to take time, especially with this like bombshell, heartbreaking Henry news.
And everyone watching this is going to hate me for saying this, but like, he did kind of learn under Feige for the past few years, you know, like.
Well, I'm sorry, anybody who says like who is mad about that, or like says Feige's like what, like. He's very good at his job. Like, don't you want that? Like, anyone who says Feige's not good at his job is just incompetent. I'm sorry.
Well, and if, you know, the thing was, oh, DC needs a Feige. You know, who's DC's Feige going to be?
Well,
like,
and arguably
why
James
not somebody
Gunn
who worked
Feige,
underneath him?
Like, better than Feige, because he's actually like a creative filmmaker who like, I mean, that, I don't know if you're going to level up. I mean, I think we just did that.
Right. Yeah. It's very possible. Very possible. We shall see.
And no, we're not being paid by Warner Brothers to say any of this. If they would like to pay me, I will take it.
Yeah.
But I am not making
I've
any
got
money.
Venmo.
I'm still seeing zeros over here, Angie.
Poor Hannah's sitting on the floor, for God's sake. She can't even get a chair.
Exactly.
All right, well, listen, there's a lot more news to come on this beat, obviously. And we're thrilled that you guys are joining us for these new videos. So we will continue to make them. Henry, we love you. We're really sorry for that, how this happened. But onward and upward, as he said. Hit subscribe, turn on your notifications, and Hannah and I will be back with more DC stuff very, very soon.